Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Love, Laughs, and Lessons. And we are actually going to shift our focus to our Let's Talk About Sex Theory series. So every time I hear that, what comes up in my mind is let's talk about sex, baby. Let's talk about you and me. All right. We have an awesome guest on the show today. And we can't wait to introduce you to her. But I'm Dr. Frankie, as you know, and I'm going to hand it over to Denise.
Yeah, I'm Denise Ray. Welcome back. We are super pleased to be with Julia Simone Fogelson. She's a licensed clinical social worker and an ASEC. Is that the way I'm supposed to say that, right?
Yep.
ASEC,
Exactly.
certified sex therapist, operating from her psychotherapy practice in Oakland, California. Julia provides Julia provides expert guidance to adults, teens, and relationships with a focus on sex therapy and gender affirming care. In addition to her clinical work, Julia imparts her knowledge as an adjunct professor teaching human sexuality at the California Institute of Integral Studies. Today, she joins us to dive into the intricate world of sex therapy. See, I can't even say it. Sex therapy,
There you
baby,
go.
particularly around the nuances of desire. So yeah, welcome, Julia.
Thank
Welcome.
you, Denise. So excited to be here with you and Dr. Frankie.
Oh my gosh, are we going to talk about desire today? Because I like it. I like that
I
topic.
like it already too. See, I was so
Yes,
excited I couldn't even say sex.
there you go. It's a very exciting word.
And this is like such a kind of, as matchmakers, it's such like,
Oh,
it feels like a little bit of an elusive, mysterious, right? The idea of chemistry. And we work really hard to,
yes,
search for compatibility. And the chemistry
absolutely.
piece is a little bit like up to, right? Like, can't always
Right.
predict that. We often can't predict that. At least I can speak for myself.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Yeah, I mean,
tell
I
us
think,
what goes into design.
yeah, well, so wait, I mean, I'm thinking of you in matchmaking, and when you're clearly when you're putting two people together, you're looking for that what we'd call spontaneous desire, where it emerges in anticipation. So you probably would this is like the beginning of a relationship, that feeling like, oh, I can't wait to have sex with this person. And it can be feelings people get at any time of like, oh, look at that person walking down the street. Oh, I wish they're interested in me. So we call it spontaneous desire. It's just spontaneous. But when we look at relationships long term, so like if you set up your match and it's maybe a year or two or more down the road, then there's a different type of desire called responsive desire. And and responsive desire emerges in response to pleasure. So did either of you know about responsive or spontaneous desire?
No, we want to hear.
No. Yeah, we
Okay.
want to, yeah, for
Okay,
sure.
okay. And this is a big one in my practice because couples, one of the top things people come in with is my partner doesn't desire me, or we don't have that spark. And they're talking about that original spontaneous desire, but it's been found the key to sex in a long-lasting relationship is responsive desire.
What?
So a lot of clients are really it's very validating. It can be very validating to hear that there's nothing wrong with you. There's no spark. It's things have shifted, and responsive desire is just as valuable as spontaneous. We often see spontaneous desire in movies and TV, and that's not actually how things work long term.
And that frustrates me. I'm just going to go back to,
Oh,
right?
I'd love to hear that. Yeah.
I think Denise knows exactly where I'm going with this. What we hear every
Okay.
day is, right, and maybe not every day, very often,
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
that we didn't, I went on the first date and I didn't feel those sparks. I want to feel those sparks, Dr. Frankie.
Oh, uh-huh.
And
Yeah, there was no spark. There was no spark.
yeah, I don't know if I should go on a second date because I didn't feel those sparks. I want to feel those. And it's like, well, oftentimes the like attraction and chemistry and desire can develop over time as you get to know someone.
Absolutely.
And on a first
Absolutely.
date, you're nervous, right? You're
There you go. Yes. That's actually, you led me right into the so it goes into desire too is accelerators and brakes. So we call it the dual control model. So a brake could be, oh, I'm so nervous. I'm not feeling much desire or or turned on because I'm nervous. I want to get there on time. Does my breath smell? Like, do they like me? All these things are gonna hit the brakes, right? And something an
Yeah.
accelerator could be like, oh, they smell so good. I like how they look. What they're saying is really like hitting me emotionally. Maybe we're talking about sex at the date, and that's like the accelerator. And the trick is often not putting the pedal on the, not pushing your foot down on the accelerator, but taking the foot off the brakes. And this is, this can be, and this is actually can be not just first date, but like if you're married and you're at home and your partner is always wanting to have sex and you're like, I have kids to pick up from school, I have things to do at the home, I have anxiety about this, I have, these are breaks, so they don't have to be sexual.
Right.
So
Right.
like
Right.
in a dating situation, right? They're
Yeah.
going on the first date. How would you guide a client that's going on a first date to be mindful of the accelerator, right?
Right. So mindful, right? Because they want to feel that passion and spark. Yeah. I'm thinking too of like, first of all, I'd actually go towards the breaks. What are the breaks? And is it all this, is it anxiety? Because naturally people, are generally can be, not everybody, but more nervous when meeting someone for the first time, especially if they've never met them before. So I'd be
Mhm.
curious about how do you stay connected to yourself and like emotionally regulate and take care of yourself. So when you arrive on that date, you are rooted in yourself and can kind of take inventory of how nervous you might be so that you can relax enough to notice, oh, they smell good, or whatever the turn on
Mhm.
or spark might be. And of course, I'm sure you do have couples who like they meet and it's like all sparks, but I don't think it's the case for everybody. And I agree with you, Frankie. It doesn't need to be the relationship ender after a first date.
Then
Yeah.
also
Yeah.
sparks, it can be related to trauma, right? Like
Ah,
the trauma bonding, right? The idea that, wow, I'm having this crazy energy with this person. But when you really look at it, like, wait a minute, this is reminiscent of somebody, she or he reminds me, or they remind
absolutely.
me of somebody from the past.
Absolutely. I'm also thinking of media with that, like the falling in love, and it's often like totally toxic and like they really shouldn't be together. They don't fit in each other's lives, they're hurting each other, but it's so romantic and heated. But if we step back, it's like, why is that romanticized? What about meeting someone and then connecting? And then maybe the desire builds because you actually like this person and there's pleasure. And not to say either one is better than the other, but
Yeah.
absolutely, I like your
Yeah.
point about trauma.
Yeah.
So are you saying that so number one, that we shouldn't, well, we already know this as matchmakers, but are you saying to the world at large that we shouldn't judge the date by the amount of desire we feel? So they
I think
shouldn't be,
sure.
okay.
Yeah,
Did
I
everyone
I
hear
think I think that's
that?
okay. I think that's okay. However, I imagine there has to be some desire to want to see that person again, or like feeling like
Yes.
there's enough there. And I mean, certainly if time goes by and you're like second, third date, and you're like, I just don't have any desire to even set up a date with this person, that's one thing.
Mhm.
But I don't think it's I think if there's enough there where you're like, I at least like talking to this person, and maybe there's some attraction, and even if it's something small that piques your interest, then sure, I think it's worth giving people another date, especially if someone's really nervous or maybe like not their best self that morning or whenever they meet.
Mhm.
What I often
Are
say,
there,
like,
yeah,
notice, right? Like, how do you feel? There's two things I want you to pay attention to. How do you feel being in
Yes.
company? Do you feel good?
Yes.
Like after the date, do you walk away feeling like pretty, like you
Right.
feel good? And are you curious about learning more about?
I love that. That's it. If you're curious, go forward, right? If you're like,
yeah,
I really don't need to know anything ever again about that person, fine. Forget
yeah,
it.
Instead of searching for like feeling like, oh, I didn't feel like I want to like madly, passionately make out with them. So that's not a
That's
match.
fine.
that's
That's
that.
absolutely
Yeah.
fine. And maybe one day you will madly, passionately make out with them after you've had like some intense conversation or something, and then you'll be like, oh, that's cool. Like I want more of that. But Right. Just because it's not spontaneous right away, it doesn't mean that there's more ways of desire. Again, like responsive. Like maybe you're intrigued by this person, you're curious, you find them aesthetically attractive enough, or you find them aesthetically attractive in general or something about them, and then maybe they lean over to kiss you and you're like, oh, now I'm feeling something. That's responsive desire. So it's not like, oh, I
Nice.
can't wait to, can't wait to get them out after the date at my house. Maybe that spontaneous desire isn't there. But then maybe after the date, they kiss you, you lean in, you like how their lips feel, you can smell their deodorant. You're like, now I'm responsive desire. And that is just as great as spontaneous.
So it's the two things together working
Yes.
in
Yes.
conjunction. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there a way for us to increase the desire that we feel? Like, right? Because
Sure.
it sounds like it's all tied into like our senses, obviously, right? Visually.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, the desire we feel. Well, I've been reading Emily Nagoski's books, which she's an
Great.
amazing sex educator, and she just came out with a new book for couples. And she talks, and one of the things she often says is pleasure is the measure. And so pleasure and desire, meaning like, what do you find pleasurable or like desirable? And that's not sexual. Like, I like to
Mm,
stand outside and the sun hits my face and I feel pleasure. I feel pleasurable. So like what other parts of your life are you even connected to that feeling? Like, do you even know what's pleasurable? So that could be interesting. Some people don't actually say, oh, I don't know what I'd like. So even connecting to any pleasure or any desire can help kind of give you a sense of what pleasure is. And then for
mhm.
desire too, I'm thinking, yeah, the mindfulness of what hits my brakes and what's my accelerators. And people can make lists. Um, and you can start there too.
When you say make lists, so can you give us like an
Yeah.
example? What would be on the accelerator list?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So I'd write down, and Emily Nagoski has worksheets you can fill in, but so things that can activate the accelerator. So sometimes I'll actually sit with couples and I'll talk with each of them, each person, about accelerators. So they can be non-sexual touch. It can be emotional, like trust, like I trust my partner. It can be flirtation, teasing. It can be I feel relaxed. It can be the excitement of it. It can be lingerie. So as
Okay.
you can hear me say, there's like some things
Yeah,
like
I get it.
lingerie or sexiness, and then there's some things like that are just I trust this person. They're not going to leave me.
That's
Um,
right.
these like
Yeah.
emotionally attuned things. Um,
Hmm.
saw people come in and if it's a cisgender hetero couple, maybe the man will say she doesn't want to have sex with me anymore, and then they start talking about this fight they had where he threatened to leave her. It's like, well, of course she doesn't want to have sex with you because she doesn't trust you or feel safe with you. But if we build some safety and like attachment and attunement, the chances of her wanting to have sex with you are higher because those are can often be accelerators. And not always, like we talked about, like maybe if there's trauma bonding, there could be different accelerators. Accelerating, maybe uncertainty is actually an accelerator for some people, or not knowing, or things like that. And then so the brakes, some things that can be on the brakes to be pain, whether it's sexual pain or just any pain. Anxiety or depression could be I'm so tired from work or I'm so tired from nursing school, I can't even imagine. Can be not feeling like the partner wants it, worry about body image, worry about pregnancy, worry about STIs.
Yeah. Okay.
And again, the trick is not so much focusing on the accelerators, but taking the foot off the brakes more
Hmm.
so. How to kind of downsize the brakes list, or when can I put some time aside where I'm not worried about this and that? Can I start birth control so I'm not worried about pregnancy? So how can we cut out some breaks?
Yeah, we're really good at the right now, especially with all that's going on in the world.
Yeah.
We're really
Yes.
good at pumping those brakes.
Pumping the brakes. That's right.
Scary.
Yeah.
It's a lot. It's so anxiety inducing, so much around
Yes.
us in our environments.
Right.
But yeah, it's scary to take the risk and meet new people and just even, right, be open yourself up to even feeling desire because the fear of
Exactly. Yeah,
abandonment.
what if I feel desire and then it's not matched and I'm
Yes.
rejected? Yeah.
Yes.
That's the
And then
big
as a
fear.
therapist, that would be all right, what's that like to be rejected? Let's talk about that part of you that's been rejected in the past. And what does that feel like? And how do we tend to ourselves, that kind of sad part of ourselves that is rejected, and knowing we can get over it, we can get through that.
Totally. Yeah. And at this point in life, you reach adulthood, we've experienced to varying degrees rejection.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's why, like I mentioned, talk about pleasure that's non-sexual. We can talk about rejection that's not through dating.
That's right.
How do you approach it in general? And then, yeah, what other experiences have you had in your life of, for example, rejection, going back to childhood even? And, were you taken care of after that? If you're rejected, were your parents like, that's okay, you're still awesome? Or your parents like, yeah, you suck. So that really can shift how we approach the big feelings like that.
Yeah. It's so interesting.
Attachment
So I'm
language.
thinking back to like our generation of like, or
Yeah.
my generation, I'll speak. It's just like back then it was like, just get over it. That's not a big deal.
Get
Just
over it.
get up and
Yeah.
keep on moving. And today I think
Exactly.
the younger generation might be the way the parents are responding might be a little different in
Sure.
response and reaction to their childhood. Mine. So
Absolutely.
a little more gentle, a
A
little
little
more
more
caregiving.
gentle.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, even if we don't talk about like childhood, even if past partners, like the trauma of past relationships, if it is
Mhm.
traumatic or not, but or if you're rejected in the past, how did that go? How was that for you? Were you resilient? Did it take you off the dating market for a while? Because it was so devastating. But yeah, that's where it's great to be a therapist primarily. I'm a trained psychotherapist, licensed clinical social worker, but also having the sex therapy piece on top of it. But then we can go back into, more of I'm talking about attachment-based therapy of, and past times this has shown up, but also tending to that wounded part of the self currently.
Yeah, yeah.
We
I
all
think
have.
it's interesting that a lot of times, the people that we work with don't even realize that they have that fear of rejection. Like if you ask them a question, they can't pinpoint it so readily that it's the fear of rejection that's keeping them stagnant. Yeah.
Yes. Sometimes offering the language is so helpful for people, like putting
Mhm.
a word out and like, oh, it's that word.
It's
That
that
helps,
word. Yeah.
but it helps describe what I'm feeling.
Mhm. Mhm. Do you have any tools for our listeners, for our clients to be able to deal with that, to recognize it?
Rejection.
Rejection with that, yeah, that's what's holding them back, is the fear of rejection.
Yeah. Well, I'd be curious, like Dr. Frankie, earlier you said, a lot of people have a lot of fears right now about, a lot of things, but dating. And I know I've heard specifically like post Me Too, like men dating, right?
Yes.
So yeah, I'd be curious, like what is the feeling? Sometimes or some people don't actually know feelings. Like it's a good point, Denise, especially people more in their head. I can say, what's the feeling? They're like, so I could offer some examples. Does it sound like this, offering
Mhm.
some language,
Mhm.
or we can use other kind of inquiries, like, or does it remind you of another time you felt similarly? Um, so kind of like coaching them or coaxing them of putting some words to their experience. But certainly
Mhm.
some people are more tuned to certain feelings than others.
What I always say, I kind of am like, let's be black and white about it. You're going to go on a
Yeah.
first or second date with someone. There's certain topics you just don't want to even
Yeah.
broach because they're complex, and first develop a sense of who that person is, let them get a feel for you and build some trust. So like have some trust in the bank. And
Yeah.
then when you share
Yes.
something that
Yes.
may not sit so well for them, whether it be your political viewpoints or
Yeah.
Mhm.
how you feel about COVID or whatever, right? Even though we're out of COVID, that's still, I mean, people are
Really
still,
relevant.
yeah, they're still living as if we're in COVID. That just happened earlier today where I talked to somebody and it's just like, people were getting back to life and this person is still very, very cautious, that can be off-putting, right? Initially, you want to, so I'm just saying, like, be maybe
Right.
like that are related to politics, leave that aside,
Right.
you know, religion. So I come up with a list of things. All right, just don't talk about these topics. And
Right. And when you want, once there's trust built and you talk about them, that the person dating you sees you as a more complex person. Not like,
Absolutely.
oh, here's the only things I know about you.
yeah,
That's right. That's right. So
yeah,
true.
because right, first impressions, as much as we're like we try to, you know, be open-minded and not judgmental, I just think it's automatic that we're,
That
you
people
know,
do.
and so we try not to judge a book by its cover, but if all we have is one date to go on, that's what we got to go on.
Yeah. So true.
Absolutely. Really
And
good.
what would you say though to the people, like when you're telling people not to talk about all of these different things and they do it anyway because they believe that this is who they are and they're being transparent? You know, this is who I am. I'm being transparent. And it's so hard to have them find the balance of what's appropriate conversation for the first date.
Yeah, that's such a good point. Yeah, because
Yeah.
they're wanting to be authentic. There's so much out there about be authentic, be your true, honest self, and why waste your time by not being as open and authentic at the right? At the outset. And I think sometimes it can be too much initially when
Overwhelming.
that person doesn't have a sense of you really. So why don't we enter into, you know, like developing the beginning of a foundation of a relationship? Let's start with things that are like more gentle, more palatable. Like let's leave our like less like our rougher edges, or however you want to call it, when we're like very, if there's something that we're extreme around or we tend to have rigidity around, right? Let's hold off a little bit.
Oh, I like that word of rigidity. Right.
I'm always talking to my clients about like,
Oh,
think
wow.
about having flow and flexibility and entertaining different viewpoints and being open and curious. And it doesn't, like, when you start to feel rigid and you start to dig your heels in, notice that and maybe like
Notice that.
soften up a little.
Often. Yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna go a long way, you know, if we can just soften
Right.
up.
I imagine even the receiver, the person going on the date with the person who may have said their, you know, off-putting viewpoints, maybe that person, once they know them more, it might, you know, unless it's a deal breaker, they might, you know, feel like the good things are worth the things maybe they can compromise on.
Yeah. I think we
think
need to get back to that. Like, there's no way that you're going to meet somebody who 100% aligns with your viewpoints. And that's what we're looking for right now.
Right.
And now it's more.
Savage says, like, you just round the 8 to 7. I think he says 7 or 8 to a 10. You round up.
Yeah, Denise, you were going to say something.
Sorry.
No, it's fine. It went out of my head. It's
Okay.
fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just
It'll
like
come back though.
Now I'm thinking, like, yesterday I was coordinating a date with a Jewish woman and a Christian woman, and the topic of, you know, Palestine, Israel. So now this is it's reminding me of COVID, only it's even harder to discuss whether you're vaccinated or not. Are you pro-vax, anti-vax? And now it's like, are you pro-Israel? I don't want to get onto the politics of it, but like, this is a whole other dimension of complexity when coordinating a date. And people are now like, oh no, it's another way that we're getting divided. Oh no, if this person doesn't believe in X, Y, and Z, that I can't go on a date with them.
That's right. If they did this one thing or voted for this person, it's not my person.
Yeah, it's like we need to let go of, like, we just need to be open and curious and not get stuck in that rigidity. And I know we're getting away from desire, but all of these things kill desire, I guess, is how I'm going to bring it back.
That's a good point.
These are all breaks.
They're all breaks.
Yes. Yes.
Well, let's figure out how we can stay and like create flow and room to be in desire, to even experience the beginnings of desire.
Beginnings.
Close prematurely on our opportunities for connection and eventual desire.
Yeah, good point.
Because we got plenty of things that cause us to pump the brake.
Exactly. Plenty. Right.
and
So
not,
that's
and I
right.
think we have plenty of things that connect us too, but for some
Yeah.
reason, we go to the brake pumping first, right? So
Yes, that's also an interesting one. Why do we go there, right? Like what anxieties
why
are we
do,
having?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, why do we cut it off before it can start?
Because that shit is scary.
It is, there you go.
Look, I
Absolutely.
want to stay
Even
really
when
safe in
that's
my little cocoon.
exactly
That's
I'm not
right.
interested in somebody hurting me or me falling in love with someone, right? That's gonna like
right.
then makes me vulnerable. I put my neck out there to be hurt. So I'll just stay
Yeah.
in my cocoon.
Right, right, right. But then there's no gain.
No,
There's
and
none
it's
whatsoever.
lonely and isolating. And us
Yeah.
humans don't thrive in isolation. We don't
We
do
need
well.
that
Absolutely.
joy. I love when you said, the things that bring you pleasure, the things that bring you joy
Yeah.
outside of sex, right? To kind of
Yes.
examine those things. And it's
Yes.
almost like we have to be reminded of,
Yes.
the good things in life, those good
Absolutely,
experiences.
right. And sometimes when people come to sex therapy, saying, "Well, I don't feel any pleasure in sex or in this or that." It's sometimes I ask them, "Let's talk about pleasure again in general. Do you feel pleasure ever in your life?" And that can be, and sometimes they look at me, "Oh my God, maybe I don't even can't even think of one thing." For me, I feel like I live a very pleasurable life. I do all these activities I love to do. So for me, I think it's easier to access that measure. Um, but I mean, and it's interesting going back to an attachment lens of some people are like, I would never given anything or allowed anything pleasurable, even growing up. Like I wanted to maybe eat that wonderful snack and it was always no. Or, I never got to do anything I wanted to do, like play a certain sport I wanted to play. Or so, some of us are more I guess, provided the framework of pleasure earlier on, and some
Mhm.
aren't. But it's definitely something we can learn and tune into and discover as adults.
Yeah, yeah.
That's a really good point because I sometimes interview folks who have like one interest
Right.
and they're like, that's all I find pleasure in this one interest. That's all
Yeah.
I
That's
ever
right.
do. And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, well, we're going
Okay.
to work on expanding our range of
Huh?
interests.
Uh-huh.
They're
Well, I
like,
imagine
what?
too, talking about safety, like that interest is safe, right? Like they're
Yes.
comfortable, they probably achieve some mastery. And a lot of
Yes.
people have so much anxiety about trying something new. What if I'm not good at it? That type of thing, going back to rejection, it's like, okay, then you're not good at it. And then you
And
go on.
learning, tolerating,
Right.
not
And
being
Tolerating.
great
tolerating, yes.
immediately. Like my son is like, I'm not doing that. I'm just gonna play baseball. I don't want to try anything else because he's great at baseball and he just wants to be
Yeah.
That's
great at
right.
everything instantly. You have to
No,
start
that's not
somewhere.
how it works. Yep.
Exactly. And the journey to getting to greatness, there's so much room,
So
like
much.
so much to
Oh
learn
my
from that.
God. But it feels
Absolutely.
horrible though. You have to admit when you're not good at something, it's an
Totally.
awkward feeling, So it's hard to take adults through that. I mean, usually we're not good at something, we're younger, right? We're not good at it and
That's
then we
true.
master it. So it's hard to take an adult, and then put them in a situation that they're not good at. So
Well, I
It's
think
humbling.
Frankie used the word tolerate. That's the key. How do we tolerate
how we
discomfort?
tolerate, that's right.
Yeah.
How do we tolerate discomfort? That's it. Just
Yes.
do it. I like being uncomfortable.
Yeah, me too.
I
Your
yeah.
growth centered, like you're wanting to grow. I know you, so I
Yeah.
can say that. And there are folks that are afraid, right? Afraid of what growth looks like for them. Because it beckons you, like it calls on you to show up, to
Mhm.
keep
Absolutely.
showing
And
up.
be seen.
Yes.
That's it, Denise. I hear a lot of, well, what if someone sees me? What will my friends think if I'm not good at it? What will the person at the gym think? And why are you so, what's this preoccupation with with others, right?
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of like I just like 6 months ago I had started Brazilian martial arts, which I should have
Ah,
started many, many years ago because
Mhm.
my body is not what it was then today. And I had to just say, you know what, this is too hard on my body. I had to, and I had to advocate for myself and talk to my teacher to say I can't do this such and such movements because I'm falling on my knee a certain way that's really causing injury.
uh-huh.
And you then stand out from the pack because everybody
That's
around
right.
is doing it.
It's
And
doing.
you have to sit with that discomfort of like,
Yes,
okay, I'm that person.
right. Yep. But
Yeah.
I'm sure you have, like, through your life, Frankie, like, for example, you have the skills to tolerate when that discomfort comes, or, we have the skills, especially as therapists, trained in helping other people tolerate, and hopefully done our own work in tolerating discomfort of, like, okay, well, here's how I self-soothe, and it's actually totally fine.
Yes. And even noticing, okay, there's a little shame, right? Shame can be debilitating.
Yeah.
Noticing, okay, yeah, like
Absolutely. It's a big
I'm
thing.
clearly older in this room. I'm the oldest female in this room, and I'm showing it by doing a modification to this exercise.
Yeah.
But you know what? I'm here and I'm showing up
Exactly.
and I'm working hard and I'm doing the best that I can, and just like shifting focus to like
Yeah.
what I am doing that's actually really positive.
Yeah.
And then
I
you
could see
model
you
it
in
for the
there,
people.
Frankie. That's right.
You can see me in
I'm,
there.
I'm a badass. I'm here. That's
Oh
right.
yeah.
But you're having to like pay attention to your thought. You have to consciously be like, I'm going to go meta about this. What
Yeah,
is happening for me right now internally? What am I
That's
thinking
right.
about? What does it mean? And how am I letting it control the way that I'm behaving? You know?
absolutely. Yep.
So
Taking that inventory.
yeah, we're talking about so many different topics that are so big. And I hopefully listeners aren't feeling like, wait a minute, I'm not sure how to
Where'd they
follow.
just go?
Yeah,
I
'cause it's
think
a
it's
lot.
all related because we're talking about, when even in desire, when there's breaks or when there's anxiety or here and there, like there's this big piece of self-soothing and taking care of oneself through dating or through sex, of you got to also take care of yourself, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So communication with the other party, communication with yourself. Yeah. So
Absolutely. And if you need support, like learning how to tolerate emotions, or, anything coming up, for example, like get a therapist and work through it if you have the access, or a coach,
that's
or,
right.
I mean,
a really, emotionally attuned friend who has some
yeah.
space.
I mean, I
Yeah.
always say I've been in therapy since I was 5. And
Amazing.
yeah, on the couch. And then since I was 21, actually sitting in the chair, therapizing.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And you
Mhm.
can never have enough. It's just like it's just we should be works in progress. We will be, not should be. We are works in
We
progress
We
at
are
are.
the
working.
very end.
That's right.
But my feeling is that we should be striving to just continue to evolve and increase our vibration as
Yes. Yes. And that's attractive. That's going to be
uh,
attractive when you go on dates,
yeah, and then you
or
attract
even in long-term
amazing people.
relationship. Yeah.
And then you
Yeah.
attract, increase your vibration. You want to know how to date that person that is so like that you admire so much and they're impressive, right? Then they're vibrating at a higher, right? You're looking up to them. Most likely
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
they're doing their work. Um,
Yes.
so wait, we have a few more minutes. Let's talk about sex. People just love to talk about sex. And
Talk about
so
sex. Let's
I'm
talk about
wondering
sex.
if we had mentioned a second ago about sex. It just escaped me, but there was a thought and desirability. Oh yeah, okay, about expressing needs and like being able to
Ah,
communicate. That's a big one that
yeah.
comes up where people are afraid to ask for
What
what.
they want.
Yes, that's it. What they want.
Why do you find that they're afraid? Why are they afraid generally? Is that they'll be like given too
Embarrassed,
much? Okay.
labeled.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Um, yeah. Usually around some kind of label, right? You know?
Yeah. Rejected.
Yeah.
I think things
Rejected.
often go like, yeah, that's definitely in there. And shame,
And
rejection.
And
shame.
yeah,
Yeah.
rejection and shame.
Or somehow that you're like, yeah, like you're a weirdo somehow because you like something done differently. Or like the other day, I just heard somebody say they're like, and I've heard this through the years that if somebody wants to use a sex toy, that it's not natural. This is in the lesbian world. Like there's
Oh no.
there's judgment and criticism around not
Yeah.
being natural about it and wanting to incorporate a dildo or a butt plug or
Yeah.
vibrator. And yeah, it's shaming. So this person
Oh.
said, hey, I would really love to incorporate a vibrator, and they got shamed.
Oh, they did. Oh, that's
Yeah.
unfortunate. I
So
feel like perhaps the shame came from a place of ignorance or not knowing, like that it's totally fine to use toys. If you're with your partner and you're using a toy or they're using it on you, it's still partnered sex. If a construction worker uses a hammer to build a house, they still built the house.
Oh my gosh, I love that analogy. I'm gonna steal
So
that.
do I. I'm using
Yeah.
it.
I think
And
that
I'm
might
like,
have been
"What?"
Dan Savage. I'm not sure who said that one, but I
I
love it
like
too.
it. And I love Dan Savage, so feel free to give him a plug. I just like, yeah, the ultimate goal is pleasure, mutual pleasure. It's
Pleasure is the measure.
however you freaking
Pleasure is the
there,
measure. That's right.
Well,
as
and
long
here's
as
the
it's
other
not
thing.
harming anybody.
Yes. And here's the other thing with desire. People, oh, my partner, I don't want to have sex. Or my partner's don't want to have sex with me. Well, are you having the type of sex that's worth having? Are you having the type of
Ooh,
sex worth setting a few hours of your day or 40 minutes of your day of what part from? And that
yes.
sex might be that really pleasurable sex with a vibrator. Fine, right?
Or even
You-
mutual masturbation.
yes,
Like
it's
Yes.
still partnered. Yes.
that's
Yes.
hot. That's
Absolutely.
yeah, like there's so
Absolutely.
much. So like I
Right.
just feel like if you keep doing the same thing, like anything
The
again
same
and
way.
again, it's like
It's
snore,
going to get
snooze
boring.
fest.
Yeah.
Yeah, change it up. Just be creative.
Absolutely.
There's so much you can do, and it doesn't have to include intercourse or you know what I mean. It can be
Oh
like
yeah.
so many different things. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, so there we go. Like so if there's pleasure using a toy, great. Then that's probably this kind of the sex that's going to be worth having, that your partner's going to want to be like, "Oh, I won't actually want to lay naked with you and do that thing again because I feel great." Versus, "Oh, let's do this other thing where I don't get much pleasure. Why would I be setting time for that?" I mean, there's
Yeah.
other things, right? In an orgasm, you're getting all other things from your partner, but there's nothing wrong when you got that pleasure, especially in, like, don't you want your partner to feel pleasure? And we get pleasure from our partners, how they're approaching it too.
which then you
But I
just
hear you with the shame piece and bringing your needs. And I think also, especially with people, who are female people or people raised female, of like, we didn't have much practice, societally, like saying our needs or speaking up or taking up space. So some people
Mhm.
are like having to do that, and it might be uncomfortable, but that's the way you're going to get the relationship you want and the
exactly.
sex you want and the sex that's worth having.
Yep. Because nobody can read another person's
No
mind.
one can be a mind
Sure.
reader. That gets people in all sorts of trouble. I wish they just knew. Doesn't he know? Well, we aren't mind readers. It's just not going to happen. So we
Yeah.
got to remove that from the table.
Yeah. Isn't that funny? We like want our people to read our mind. We want to feel that close to them that they're like inside our
Yeah.
head, that they're able to predict what
They should
exactly it is
know.
they want and need.
Right, right. And that is has guaranteed trouble.
So,
Right.
yeah.
They'll never know. They'll never know. You
Yeah.
have to tell them.
The
Yeah.
Yeah.
the other thing that you just said orgasm, and it just made me think of like how people get orgasm focused too. It's like, what about just the journey of just being, why does it
Yeah.
have to be about an orgasm? Can it just be like, this feels good, I'm enjoying this, this pleasure feels good,
Yes.
and not being
But some
fixated on
people
the
were
oh,
taught that that is the end goal, is the end goal, and they
I
don't
know.
know how
Yeah.
to do anything else. So
Right.
that's a whole nother conversation, right?
That's a whole nother unlearning and relearning. Right. I mean, if
Learning.
people just want an orgasm, they could go masturbate. There's more to it when you're with a partner that you can get out of it. That's not just the orgasm. And we also know the more pressure there is, that is a
recipe
desire,
for disaster.
libido,
Yeah,
disaster, the killer.
yeah.
So take
Also,
that
like
pressure off the table.
some people are just harder, like it's harder for them to orgasm, women.
Absolutely.
Yeah, right. So isn't it okay to like be having, having pleasure with somebody or multiple people and feeling like, you know what, I can't reach orgasm that easily this way, but I know exactly how to do it on my own.
Yes.
And then you're welcome to do that on your own or in company, but there's nothing wrong with that either.
Nothing wrong. People come to partnered sex, not always. Some people, especially males, having masturbated for years, we know, they know exactly what to do. So might as well bring that to the situation.
Incorporate it.
Incorporate it. Right. You're in your body. You're the only person who spent, decades in your own body. So why don't you share that? Not make this person like figure it out, which could possibly never happen. And then you're in a rigidity where you're not gonna find sex worth having.
No,
That's
and
right.
that's not
Yeah.
fair. What's up with that? It's
And
like,
that's not fair. Yeah.
yeah, oh, hot, hot, hot. No, now you're cold. You're so
Right.
cold. So cold.
Right.
It's like,
Right. They should be able to
That's hot
figure
peas
it
and
out.
butter. Find the spot. I'll close my eyes and wait.
Right. Right.
like, why? You know, like it said,
I
just
mean, it's
here,
a
let me take your hand.
juxtaposition.
I'm gonna take your hand right now. I'm gonna show you exactly where this is right
Exactly.
here.
This is here.
Yeah.
That's
Is
right.
their hand there? Absolutely. Yes, this is how I like to do it. Or again, like you mentioned mutual masturbation. That can be hot in its own way. And then you can learn, oh, that's how they touch themselves. That's how they do it. Oh, okay. And that
Exactly.
can be very arousing too. And going back to like responsive desire, maybe you're not feeling into it, but you want to lay next to your partner and they're masturbating and you're like, oh wow, just seeing them do that. Now I want them. This is hot. And that's responsive desire. Like, okay, actually now do you want to, engage with me actually? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. That's
I
good.
like that. Because I think oftentimes too, it's like, I don't know, you probably, Julia, know the terminology, but like when we think about sex, sometimes we're not feeling the desire, and you have a
Yeah.
partner or whatever, and you've been together for a while, and you're just like, once you get into the motion
That's
of
it.
it,
That's the
then
responsive.
That's
then you're
responsive.
That
like,
is
Okay.
literally
wow.
responsive desire. You just said what it is. Yeah, and there's a metaphor Emily Nagoski uses, which is pretty helpful of like you've been invited to a party. You're not really feeling like going to the party, but you really like these people. Once you get to the party, you're pretty sure you're gonna have a good time. So you go to the party, right? So you go and maybe sleep, start initiating with or responding to initiation with your partner. So maybe you don't feel it before but that responsive desires, you're responding, right?
Yeah.
And now you're
Yeah.
in it. And again, that's just as useful and valuable as the spontaneous spark, which is, much harder to come by. And again, they're on the same moral value. There's not one better than the other, but as a society, we put so much stock in the spark, the
In the
spontaneous
spot.
spark.
And it's in every freaking
Yeah.
movie. It's like,
Exactly.
and it gives people this illusion, this false ideal, and it's
Right,
so
that there's a
frustrating.
problem or someone's broken in the relationship.
There
Yes.
you go. Yes. The
Like,
other person
no.
isn't good enough or doesn't meet
Yep,
or
yep.
doesn't qualify,
Right, right. So
and
when
they're
I
looking
tell,
for that person to bring the spark, even though they
yeah,
say, I didn't feel it with you, I'm like,
yeah.
oh, it's so yucky.
Uh-huh.
I like the analogy of the party. You go into the party.
Yeah. Yeah. And then
People are good.
I once used that analogy and the person I was using it with in therapy said something like, well, I know when I get to the party, I'm not actually gonna want to go to the party. So that's a different situation of like, so the sex you're having is not worth having. You're not
That's
liking,
right.
the party is not somewhere you want to go to. If we come back to the analogy of the party being sex. So then it's like, well, what type of sex is worth having? Do you need to talk to your partner about what actually feels good? What type, do you need to incorporate something? Do you need to bring your vibrator?
Yeah.
How can you make that party somewhere you want to go?
Yeah. They need to play your song, whatever that song is at
Yes,
that party.
exactly,
And
Denise.
don't leave it up to them to guess, right?
No guessing,
And
right?
let them know
Bring your
what song you want them to
playlist.
play.
You bring your playlist, right? They don't
Your
have to, you don't tell someone
playlist.
to pick 20 songs you just think I'm gonna like, right? You
Think
go,
about
here's
it
my favorite song.
beforehand. Think about,
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
forethought.
There you
That's
go.
pretty good. I love that.
Yep.
Pleasure is the measure.
Pleasure is the measure.
On that note, Julia, tell us how folks can find you.
Okay, well, they can find me on my website, www, do people say that anymore? Julia, psychotherapy.com. My email is similarly julia@juliapsychotherapy.com. And then from my website, you can see more about me.
And
Excellent.
just to share this side note, Julia and I were in the same cohort at CIIS for our board certification sex therapy deal.
Classes,
So
yes, absolutely. That's where we met.
Each other. Yeah, and she's awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Bay Area based, right?
Hey area. I'm based in Oakland. My practice, therapy practice is hybrid online and in person. So I see local folks in person, and anyone in California I can see online.
And you can't see people
Amazing.
outside of California?
Not online. No. In general, no. That's true. Thanks
Got
for clarifying, Dr. Frankie.
Yeah. Good. Okay. So if you're in California,
If
and
you're in California, which I know not everyone is, but if you're lucky enough to be here, yes. Yes.
if you work with couples, just tell them kind
I
of
work with couples and more, thruples, etc. It is the Bay Area after all. And also adults and teens.
and
Amazing.
polyamory, ethical
Yes.
non-monogamy.
Yep. All of that good stuff is, yeah, things I work with in my practice, sex, and I have a list, kind of a short list, could be longer, but a list of also kind of sexual issues people come to see me for.
Amazing.
My website, yeah.
Yeah, I know that more and more people are considering less traditional ways of being in relationship. So it's
Absolutely.
great
Yep.
that you're specializing in that.
Absolutely. Yes. Uh-huh.
That's good. Thank
So
you so
good.
much, Julia. Thank you. I
Thank
love
you,
it.
Thanks so
Julia.
much, Dr. Frankie
Yeah.
and Denise. This is really fun.
And thank you,
Yay.
listeners, for
All
tuning
right.
in. And hopefully you'll be here next week with us for another awesome talk about sex. And, this is our Let's Talk About Sex Baby series. See you all later.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye. Bye.